Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel and to the new episode of Me Time with Sagar. And as you know, the podcast says here we talk with architects and designers who do something different in the field of architecture and design. But before moving on, have you watched the previous episodes? If not, the link is added in the description below. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can bring more such content to you guys. So let's move on and talk with our guest for today. Hello Arjun sir, welcome to my podcast Me Time with Sagar and thank you for your time. Ever since I saw your work majorly on Instagram, I hope I see it in person someday. I wanted to have a podcast with you.
Thank you, Sagar. I think like lighting's been very exciting, and we're quite excited to see what we do now in the next 10 years. We've just built a body of work for the last 10 years. Quite excited to see how it evolves for us.
Yes. So I'm glad to see you virtually. It was nice to meet you in person in the Metaverse event. And when I met you, you were like, okay, I know you are FYI guy and I know your page. And I was like, what? How you know me? So that was quite nice. So should we roll to the first question?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
So you're an architect, a photographer, and amazing lighting designer. What else we don't know about you?
I think I'm also a very reserved person. I love to sort of like relax. I love to switch off. I love to just travel to the hills or travel to the beaches and just sort of relax and think a lot. I think that's where a lot of my reboot actually happens. Otherwise, I think in general, I think there are a lot of common passions that we all share. I love all Marvel movies. I love all DC movies. I love uh, just sort of like going for concerts. I think it's pretty much sort of like you just live your college life a little bit differently when you're working.
Now you have said Marvel movies, we can just jump onto different conversation altogether. But I'll just come back to this interview and I'll just go back to some of your college memories. So is there any college memory you cannot forget?
I think like college was a very interesting time for me. When you join architecture, you don't know what you're getting into, and it's very important the school guides you into a direction. And I was in Kamla Raheja, and they sort of had a very open way of teaching architecture, where they actually, in the first year, the faculty was joking that only 30% of people who graduate from the college end up practicing. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna graduate and start doing buildings, and I'm gonna do a museum someday, and I'm sort of having the whole dreams of what architecture is all about, right? And I think like with like college, it was pretty interesting. I didn't really fit in very well. I was always sort of trying to make my own way. I stood out a bit. I had really long hair. I used to wear Iron Maiden t-shirts. So you're not the most liked by the faculty throughout architecture. And I think like whatever journey and process I went through, that really sort of taught me discipline. And that's the only memory I have from college of learning a life skill which I could apply later on into my practice, into my work, into my day-to-day things, how I do.
I'll share one of my college memory, which was the final year when I saw the result, and I was very proud of myself, of course, in a very positive way. And I could see all those 5 years in front of me, seeing that result. So it was a beautiful college memory for me. So now we know your college memories. I want to go into something into professional part. So a failure story which changed everything for you.
I think I've failed at every level, all the way from college to like multiple things what I've been doing, right? I've only learned by failing at things. I'm a self-taught lighting designer. Nobody taught me how to design lighting. I started the practice as an architect, and 2 months into the first project, it got cancelled at the line out stage, right? And you're suddenly left that, oh, you've just quit your corporate job and now you've started your practice. And now what do you do? I I said a close friend's birthday is coming up in a week's time. He was a classmate of mine in college. I had 5 friends in college. He was one of those 5 friends. And I said that I'll make a lamp for him. That lamp got published in a few magazines. From there, I got an opportunity to do a lighting, like a custom lighting design project. And it just sort of evolved into into what I'm doing, from one lamp to 100-foot installations. But it was a lot of self-study in between. Like I'm still constantly studying, constantly doing online courses, constantly buying books to keep on studying. I've learned a lot on practical detailing, but all those details I have learned by failing at the same details. We recently failed at one detail right now. Like just last month, I was trying to build a 13-foot uh, glass totem, made in multiple like glass forms. It shattered 3 times. Like we actually the same mock-up of that glass totem failed yesterday, and we are going to remake it, right? So you learn from failing and then you try and get better at it. The whole idea is that you can't get demoralized. Like you have to just sort of try and say, okay, this thing failed, it's okay, now you move on and make sure you like get it right. And that's what experience is all about, so I've practically failed at every process that I've worked with. That's the only way I've learned.
I think people who will see this interview will learn from this point a lot, that yeah, failure comes, but at the end of failure, you learn something. And lighting designers also, who aspire to be a lighting designer, will also learn it from it a lot. So moving on to our next question, we are moving into your practice. So light, form, emotion. Can you connect these dots for us?
So for example, when I was doing a lot of architecture, I was very influenced by Nice, Van der Rohe, by Alvar Aalto, Corbusier, Frank Lloyd Wright. I studied the masters extensively, and plus all the architects, throughout college. So you were always taught that light and architecture, light and form is extremely important. And that was something what I was doing with my architecture in the early years as well, right? Light and form. And parallelly, like, the first 5 years of the practice, I was doing everything. I was doing lighting, I was doing architecture, I was doing interiors. And I never thought that lighting, a passion, would become the main aspect of your practice, right? So at that point, when I was doing architecture, you were always sort of trying to get light, form, and create an emotional connect to the space. And then the whole light forms emotion became when I started getting more into the lighting. I just added the S, that the light that you put into the space, the fitting that you design, is going to have a very strong emotional connect, and I got the opportunity to work on custom lighting design at a very early age. And each time I was experimenting with a new light, experimenting in different regions with different architects. Like, modern architecture for a Bombay architect is so different to what modern design in Hyderabad or Calcutta is. And it helped me really try and get what the client mentalities are in these different regions, the like designer mentalities are. This is something which is constantly sort of like a good study for me. And that's where light forms emotion became very important, where I wanted people of these different regions to have an emotional connect to the product that I designed for them. And most of our products, like quite a few of our early ones, they follow a similar architecture process, where we have a concept, then we create the shape, we create archetypes and forms, and then we create it. Like a lot of my early works were inspired from architecture, from the Shikhara lighting, which was inspired from the totems on all our temples, mosques. The Bauhaus collection was just inspired from the movement of Bauhaus started by an architect, the geodesic lamp collection from Walter Gropius's experiments, and so I mean, like, I've built that light form emotion over the years. For me, it's a derivative of architecture and how I apply it into lighting.
So I think this is we got to know about the philosophy, like, as a studio, how you work. So I just want to move into lighting design. So can you tell us about the lighting design process, more about the glass art?
Sure. So I mean, like, with like I thought the lighting design process would be a little bit easier, but it's not. I've actually sort of over the years, we've listed almost a 40-step process of where we start from the first connect to the client to the end of the installation of the client. And just like architecture, I've broken the project or the way we work into phases. And I think that's like very, very important, where as a studio, when we are like custom designing for most architects, the first phase is where we are sending out our pitches, where we are sending our concepts, sending the designs. So we always ask for the architects or designers to send drawings to us. As an architect who's worked on spaces, it's very easy for me to study the drawings, get a sense of the scale, and sort of start proposing through those drawing processes over there. Once that is done, then we get into the whole fabrication and drawing stages, where all material samples are sent out, shop drawings are made. Like we recently had an exhibition of our 10 years of our work. We were showcasing drawings of light, as one of the major exhibits, where I was showing a lot of my installations and the drawings that went to building them. Some of the installations had over 100 drawings, and those are more drawings than what people put into a building sometimes. Every detail, you know, so so we try and follow that same process in architecture, where we are absolutely picture perfect on paper. Then we go into the fabrication stages, where then we meet our fabricators, we start explaining them the process. So in terms of process, where we're sort of sharing that, a lot of like once we are done with our like meetings, many times we're working with different processes and different materials. Sometimes your fabrication is happening locally here in Mumbai. We're working with different craft sectors around the country. Like sometimes our Chenapatna works come from Chenapatna down south. Sometimes we work with Longpi pottery that comes from Manipur. Sometimes you're working with like a Bidri craft, which is in Bidar on the outskirts of like Hyderabad, over there. So it's very sort of tricky to sort of try and get all these materials together to fit together. That's why drawings are extremely important, and that's something what I stress a lot in the studio. With terms to glass, for a very long time, we were sort of working with external glass makers. Till we started our own factory called the Rural Modern Glass Studio. We were working with glass factories in Firozabad, where it started out. Then I was working with glass factories in China, glass factories in Europe. Czech Republic and Poland were the two hotbeds. Italy, we've ordered a lot of glass in the past. I've bought glass from Africa also, from some studios there. So each time when you're working with so many different craft sectors and different materials, it's very important it all comes together. And when we do our detailing, you have to also keep flexibilities for their mistakes. See, when you're working in India, you can try and cover up your own errors, but the fabrication errors, the glass errors, those are something what your details have to really factor in when you're working here, like in India. It's not as easy as making a drawing for a glass object and it comes out precisely what you want. Like, sometimes the opening is going to be 5 mm more, 5 mm less. You have to change your entire metal fitting to fit that. So a lot of those processes that we set are working around that how do we reduce the reworks and reduce the errors and the checks. So that's where a lighting design process in custom has become. I think similarly in architecture, you do those processes so the site goes in a smoother manner. Now, at the same time, when we are sort of doing this detailing, we are also coordinating with the project site. So as an architect, I know when the light has to reach there, at what stage, what process should be done, when should you install ply, when should you do the wiring, how to change the wiring points, at what stage. So all of those stages of architecture get coordinated by our studio, mixed into this 40-step process what we are doing in the studio. So it becomes easy as a service provider for the architect, where they are not following up with you like constantly for basic processes, where your team's anyway coordinating it with their site team. And then the installation bit is the most fun and challenging part, where it's the whole test and the exam, right? That everything has to fit together in a very smooth and quick manner. So a lot of my detailing has sort of changed over the years to see how things can get installed very quickly at site, how they can be transported in a very modular manner, how you can design something in Bombay, execute in Calcutta, execute in Bangalore, execute in London, tomorrow. So that style of thought process is constantly sort of like evolving for us.
It must have been a crazy when the lighters, like on a site day, it would be a crazy day for you, installing everything and get understanding, like making the contractor understand everything and doing that. And I've also seen the details of the drawings you were talking about when you had that 10 years event. So I saw that lighting a story where with all the drawings and everything, and those were so much of details. Like I've never seen a lighting drawing with so much of details. And also, I would like to congratulate you for completing 10 years in the industry.
Thank you.
So, I was not there for the event, but maybe next time I'll be there in that event.
No, we're planning to get a publication of this out actually. We're going to call it the 1001 publication. So the 1001 talks about 10 years of Arjun Rathi Design and 1 year of rural modern glass.
Oh.
And whatever we showcased in the exhibition with some add-ons, it's going to be the studio's first publication that goes out. As architects, you used to read a lot of architects, they used to write. There used to be this joke by Frank Lloyd Wright that now Corbusier has finished a building, he'll write 2 books about it, and so important to just write about what you're thinking, what your theory is. And I think that was something what I wanted to do with the glass studio to open it up. So this publication will probably be a set of the compilation of whatever we showcased into a very neat, thin publication. And I'm thinking every year we can get one out, from the studio perspective.
I love to see that publication when it's out. So
Totally.
I always wanted to ask you this: how you name your products when you design the shikara, the loop lamp, and my personal favorite was the candy collection. I self renamed it as Candy Verse. Okay, so I just wanted to know how you name the products.
So I think with the earlier products, like I said, a lot of them came inspired from architecture. The Shikara is very clearly sort of inspired from Buddhist stupas. But the key thing is that it's got the 5 elements in it: earth, fire, wind, water, ether. And the more you study architecture, you realize how so many religious structures are so similar because of the architecture. Just the same elements are represented differently in the building. And I wanted to sort of take inspiration from there and apply it into a product. The Bauhaus collection came straight from the movement, and even the way we produced it. Bauhaus was all about industrially producing a mass-produced collection, mixing the factory and the craftsman. And that's exactly what the lighting collection was exploring at that stage. When it came to the sugar collection, I know we had designed it in 2020 towards the end of the lockdown, and it was already, you were in the lockdown, you were already sort of little cooped up in the house for a long time. There was not much movement. It was extremely slow. Now that when you reminisce about that pace, how slow it was and how quick it is now, I'd love to go back to that pace. But with that sugar collection, I realized that in India, we didn't have a really pop collection. A lot of our furniture was very serious. A lot of our lighting was very serious. Also, a lot of the lighting that I saw, Sagar, in the market was a result of industrial capability. So if the factory could produce certain shapes, certain styles, they would be in the market. Also, they were very much copying trends. So whatever trends were working in Italy, they were trying to find a derivative of that, either easily producible or a very direct copy. And that's what the market was flooded with in the options. So with the sugar collection, I said that let's do a fun collection, which is very loud, which is very pop, full of color. And with India, we are so filled with color in our country, and we are so scared of it. I don't know how to explain it, right? When you see the modern architecture that we shying away from color, shying away from fun, it's so serious, with the interiors in most of the cases. You only see fun and color in art. You never see it in your furniture or your lights. And that was one of the things where I said, let's try and take inspiration from Indian desserts. We have a very strong connect with food. There is no stronger sort of a connect for India with food and culture, And we hired a food consultant to study 250 desserts in India. So the study went on for 3 months. We studied state by state. We still keep on going back to the case study because we've only sort of released 5 desserts into a liable product, There's a huge database of Indian desserts that we still have to sort of bring into design now. So we studied everything from the process of making the dessert, the ingredients, to the textures, and then we picked sort of 5 things which I felt had immediate potential. Also, I was doing a showcase in 2021 in February, and I started designing this collection in October. So I was terribly late already because we were very short on time. So by December, after the study, we picked out 5 things which caught our eye. First was the candies of India, the orange candy, pan pasan, the poppins, and all those bright colors. Then the bullseye candy came in, which became the signature for the collection in a way. And those were exploring art glass for the first time. At that point, I'd like to share the process with you. I contacted every glass artist in the country, and everyone refused to make that glass. Then I reached out to a lot of the international glass community, and just in the nick of time, one Czech artist in Czech Republic, jury sort of said, you know what, I'm going to make it for you. And he made it for me, and he sent it down like a day before we left for the exhibition in January. So it came in the nick of time. So that's how the candy collection came out with the whole bullseye. Just to sort of expand upon it, that glass, when it came down, was so expensive. It inspired me to start my own factory here, that if I want to explore art glass in the long run, how do I do it? Like, if the glass is coming from Czech Republic at this expense, who's going to buy it? And I always wanted good design to be as affordable as possible. There's a lot of cost when you're making things one at a time in what we do, but I still wanted it to be that we worked so hard to get a like finishing level at the quality what you buy from Italy, if not better, and suited for the Indian market. But let's make it more affordable. Let's not price it at the same price you buy it from an Italian brand. And that's how the glass studio came out. The other aspects of the sugar collection came from desserts like the pan, which is a signature in all over India. Like, every state had a different style of pan. It was something exciting. The motichur laddu, one of my favorites. So we created a typology of light called the ceiling flush mount light. So flush mount lights were very popular from like all up to 1970s, before your spotlights came. For a long time, people were using ceiling mounted lights, table lamps, standing lamps, wall lamps, chandeliers as the only source of lighting for your space. And over time, once the spotlights and technical lighting market built up, like, a lot of people were sort of finding their balance between the two. But that whole idea of the ceiling flush mount almost like diminished in the last 30 years. Very few people end up using it. So I wanted to bring that format back, and we got that in the motichur, in the chocolate light over there as well. So we just thought it would, like most of those lights, they are derived from the texture of the dessert that we studied, but also technically sound. Where, for example, the chocolate light is like a panel light. So instead of like putting a Philips panel on your ceiling, or a panel light from a brand you would buy, you could put the chocolate scone and still sort of have that same effect of light that comes into the space. So a lot of our works were sort of like technically detailed in formats of living, the way we designed our frames. So I've studied maybe 100 plus living rooms over the last year, few years of working. Every like living room, apart from having differences in the space and the layout, they are relatively designed in the same way. How the light has to be centered. Either the light can be centered, it can be in the corner, it can be in certain positions. There might be a fan over there. So you're creating these different typologies and formats. And all the formats in the sugar collection are actually done with that idea of design, where they all are interchangeable, extremely customizable, and exploring different materials like glass, leather, ceramic in the motichur, and like bunch of other processes there.
I hope some of those from the sugar collection is installed in Nagpur someday. I would love to see those. I will, yeah. So now this is the last question in this segment, and we are going into the personal zone of the question. So as the name says, me time with Sagar. We will how you spend your free time, or how lazy do you get on Sunday, or when you're not working.
I think like the Sundays are a bit of a rush. There is no Saturday, there's no Sunday, there's no Monday. All days are almost the same. I think when you're running a practice, it's whenever you need to take a break, you take a break, or whenever you can get to take a break, you take a break. Even today on Sunday, like today is the day I'm going to sort of try and plan out my week, plan out, use this time for reading. There's like a whole set of books which I've sort of got from my last trip from Italy. I'm going to start reading those. I'm going to take that time to reconnect with clients who I haven't called back. Like there's so many clients who I can't call back. Like even after 2 days, sometimes you're not in the right mind space, you're not in the right frame, and they're calling you at the worst time when you're at site or the workshop. I'm going to call all of those guys back, just run through all the emails. So it's sort of like, in a way, that does become a bit of an unwinding sort of a session at that point.
Pretty busy Sunday, I think you are having. So now let's move on to something fun. And this is a rapid fire round, specially curated for architects and designers. And I have
Okay.
also done my homework for first question.
Okay, great.
Okay. So do you want to be a Batman or an ice hockey player? You have to only choose from one of them.
Yeah, that's like the most terribly difficult one because I'm passionate, so passionate about the both. I think like, between Batman and ice hockey player is definitely ice hockey player.
Well, the interesting thing is that when you get
There's something called as fantasy ice hockey, which I've been following, like how you guys have fantasy football.
Yeah.
I've been playing fantasy ice hockey since 1998.
Oh.
I spend hours obsessively staring at my team on any random day, so including Sundays. So that's definitely.
If you're not an architect or lighting designer, you will be an ice hockey player.
I wish I was that good. Yeah.
So, okay. If not in India, where would you like to practice?
Sweden, Stockholm, favorite city I've ever visited in my life. I fell in love with that city. It's so pretty. The culture is so nice. I'm a huge fan of ice. I love the sea over there. It's got part of nature. The people are so sweet. So I think Sweden would be my place to sort of maybe retire someday.
And as you love ice, you might end up playing ice hockey also.
Oh, they have a great ice hockey culture in Sweden.
Yes. Yes. So my third question to you is your dream project.
My dream project, I think that dream project has changed constantly. But right now my dream project is when the new airport comes up in Bombay, I want to design all the decorative lighting for it.
Oh.
I want to beat all the European brands who are pitching for it, try and get my company to a level where we are in the bidding. A lot of Indian brands don't get opportunity to work on such projects because of the scale and the process. I would love to sort of design the major installations at the airport.
Okay. So now very important question for an architect. Series of sleepless architecture nights or site with a missing contractor, which is more terrifying?
Which is more?
Terrifying.
Oh, the sleepless nights are not at all sort of scary. I've been trained with it for 6 years in design and 10 years of practice. I think reaching the site with no contractor happens all the time, happens at least once in 10 days. Yes. I mean, the contractor is not on time, is late. And I think that's the whole step of working in India, where you have to work around it and be a little flexible. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, what you would like to change in design industry if you can?
I think in the design industry, I would love if more people openly shared and sort of more people came together, built more communities. I think we have some micro communities forming in the major metros like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore to a certain extent. But when you see growing markets like Hyderabad, Kolkata, even smaller towns like sort of Kanpur, Bhopal, Indore, you don't have a lot of the design communities openly sharing and coming together. The platforms are there, but they are probably not sort of bringing people together. And I think that's something which is very, very important, where, we've had a very disconnected relationship with architecture and our government bodies where they don't support us. So it's important the designers just come together and build a sense of community to help each other out.
I'm trying that for Nagpur, like bringing the architects together. I'm trying that and trying to have an event for those architects. So let's see how.
Do a social event, get them to party, get them to see their side. A lot of people feel that when you socialize, you need to just involve in them in just sort of involve each other to get to know each other more. Yes, nobody wants to go and discuss work and how did you work on your project or something like that. But when you know each other, you will respect each other, respect each other's work, stop trying to undercut each other because you know each other as friends. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very important of a community angle, what you have to build. Try and look out for each other. Hey, yeah, your client shopping around, he's called me, I'm going to sort of speak to him. So build a community for each other in your city. That is very, very important, which I think a lot of the cities in India are lacking. Hopefully that will change.
Yes, I'm trying and I hope that will change. So we are coming back to the last question. It's most important and a difficult question for some. So items you cannot live without.
Oh, wow. Currently, it's definitely become the cell phone. Like, the cell phone is faster than my laptop that I'm using right now from the memory angle, but I do a lot of business from it, and it's one of the core components what you're sort of using right now. Otherwise, I think my speaker, I love listening to music. So I really like the bass in a certain way. There's a nice vintage speaker right here, which keeps me going. So it's made in China, but it just sounds perfect, So I'm very, very happy
Are
with
you
it.
into EDMs or certain other music?
I think like I have a very wide spectrum of music. We all started out, at least from my generation, in rock. In college, I had hair till my waist, which was partially dyed red. That's why my faculty hated me. And so a lot of rock influence, a lot of EDM I have grown into. For a long time, I did not like it, but the energy, just when you go to a concert and you see so many people vibing to a certain music, you're very like I'm very like receptive to other people's energy. So I think that was that really attracted me to that genre of music. Jazz is obviously one of my favorites, and seeing some of the new age artists working in different ways, sort of like using jazz in a very new age way, mixing various genres with jazz. It's been a lot of fun with music to see that experimentation happening.
I think my the music which gives me energy is South Indian music.
The South?
South Indian music. It's
Oh,
like
South Indian music.
there are like
Yeah, yeah, it's very nice.
they use Indian instruments and the bass and the music. It's very nice. Like it's give you energy. Whenever I'm down, I listen to that music.
So in fact, when we were making a video for the Shikara light, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. I saw.
I had a friend of mine who's a really good EDM composer. So we took a South Indian Karnataka beat and we remixed that into an original song. So the whole idea of sort of like taking inspiration from music has been very, very close to me. My thesis was music and architecture.
Ooh.
So a lot of study with Indian music overall. I love the genre overall.
So I was not sure that I would ask you this question in the interview, but I want to
Yeah.
ask you apart, like not in the interview, wala, but
Totally.
so you always talk about your hair, and I like the particular style of dress you wear. So how it came?
So like, in 2011, I had gone for New Year's in Hong Kong, and all my friends were shopping at H&M and all that. And it was New Year night, right? And I'm sitting in H&M for 1.5 hours waiting for these girls to shop. I've already planned my outfit for the night and everything. And then I was going around, they went to billing, and in the billing, they had these suspenders lying in the checkout counter line at H&M. I picked up 2 pairs, and you won't believe I didn't know how to wear them. So, and then the next day we went to some Hong Kong market. I picked up 4-5 pairs again because they look so pretty, the way they were detailed, the weaves, and I brought them all to India, and my dad showed me how to wear them. And I was working with India Bulls at the time as a senior architect with them. I was designing buildings for them. So I've been working with them for like a year, now. And like, December, like New Year happens, Jan first week, sometime around Jan 10th, Jan 12th, I finally decide let's wear one pair of suspenders and go to office today. So I put it on, I wear a white shirt, black pant, black suspenders, and I go. And suddenly, like, I reach the lift lobby and I'm carrying my bag, right? And the watchman thinks I'm some MD of the company. He runs, grabs my bag, takes me to the special MD lift. I'm up. He's like, no, no, sir, I'll drop your bag to your cabin. So we walk into the massive open plan office, and he, sir, which cabin is yours? And I'm like, no, no, I'm on that desk. And it was like, so it just sort of built out of the fun element from there. But I also found it very comfortable. Like, belts dig into your waist. So like, also I don't advise it if you want to have a fixed sort of a waistline, because you'll expand and contract and you won't know. Because with the belt, you at least know when you jump a loop. With suspenders, it just keeps expanding. But it just sort of stuck with me from there. And I'm very consistent overall. Once I get into one thing, I don't think I change it very easily.
I think this is a style statement that an architect is following, and I hope it gets a style statement. And some other architect also launches their own style. So I think we are done, and I know we got to know about you from your music taste, from being an ice hockey player and not a Batman. So I think Batman would not be happy listening this. So we got to know your journey, and learn from you. And coming back to your rapid fire performance, your winner and jury has selected you. So as a ritual, from our last episode, there's a gift you have to give to me. So
Okay.
please say to the camera and say subscribe to f.y.i Art and follow him on Instagram too.
So I think like your this online sort of blog which evolves in, I hope it evolves into a magazine and a publication in the future. I think it's a great initiative. I hope it brings a lot of communities together, and I'd always encourage students to sort of follow such blogs. Please follow f.y.i Architecture on Instagram, YouTube, and let's hope we can have some great discussions on your platform that you create, Sagar. Very excited to see where it goes.
And thank you for giving time for the interview, the podcast. I hope we see it we see it today. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sagar.